Now we begin with security updates from Kebbi State, where only 11 out of 24 schoolgirls abducted from their school in Maga on November 17 have been safely reunited with their families, although all the kidnapped girls are out of activity. Now the girls arrived in the town late Wednesday night, bringing much needed relief to their loved ones and the wider community. Their abduction on November 17 had sparked intense concerns and prompted a coordinated rescue effort across the state. Joining us now are News Central correspondent Jamil Mabai. He will be speaking alongside peace, security and conflict resolution expert Mansur Kurugu, who will be speaking from Kano. And I'm being told that Jamil has not joined us, so we just have Mansur Kurugu. Thank you so much, Mansur, for joining us at this time.
Yeah, hi. The pleasure is mine, and good morning.
It's a pleasure. So now, Mansur, speak to us. Reports actually say that, all 24 schoolgirls abducted from their school in Maga have been safely returned, while 11 have been reunited with their families. But how do you weigh in on this latest development?
We are happy as humans that these young girls have reunited and have escaped captivity or has been rescued, whatever that could have been. But again, that is telling us that like the kind of level that we are in as a country and as humans. If young persons of a school age can be, abducted overnight, over 24 of them, and then would be carried by some people, and then of course that is putting everyone in jeopardy. The education, the mental health of all of these young women and their families are all at jeopardy. And then of course it also raised a lot of questions about what is actually the process that the government have applied to these young.
Mansur, we seem to be having an issue with your audio, but we will definitely try to reconnect with you. Now, away from that, President Tinubu has declared a nationwide security emergency, ordering the Nigerian police and armed forces to recruit additional personnel to tackle rising insecurity across the country. In a statement issued from the State House, the president directed the police to recruit 20,000 new officers, bringing the total planned intake to 50,000. He also authorized the use of National Youth Service Corps camps as temporary training facilities for the recruits. Tinubu gave the Department of State Services authority to deploy trained forest guards to flush out terrorists and bandits operating in Nigeria's forests and ordered the recruitment of more personnel to strengthen the said operations. All right, well, News Central's Bettina Nweli joins us now from Abuja for some insight on into this story. Bettina, thank you so much for joining us. If you can hear me.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Bettina, tell us, this looks like a case of, matching words with action, for the president. What do you have to say about this?
Well, I would say that the strategies that are being put in place now are things that have been long overdue. Now we have our president saying that the Nigerian police force needs to recruit more people to join the force. Initially, they had mentioned 30,000, but from the press statement that was released yesterday, he is now saying an additional 30,000 should be added to make it 50,000. One must now wonder and question how many individuals do we have in our Nigerian police force in the first place if we are needing 50,000 at this time to combat insecurity. But those are one of the things that we are looking at, and we are glad that the president has put his foot down to make sure that we have more personnel that are going to be securing the nation. Also, the removal of VIP security from VIPs that we know. Usually you go to weddings, you see policemen, sometimes even uniformed army men, working like servants, for lack of a better word. Some are holding food, serving guests, opening car doors. But thankfully, now that there has been an authority from the president, all of that will come to an end. And then from the statement yesterday, they are also going to undergo another retraining to make sure that they know why they have been called back and the duty that lies before them. So I think it's a very commendable step, and I hope that it does yield fruitful results.
All right, thank you, Bettina, for that. and now we will go back to the first story, where we now have our correspondent, Jamil Mabe, joining us to speak on the release of, or the rescue of the kidnapped Kebbi State schoolgirls. Jamil, you were there and witnessed the return of the girls. What else has happened since then?
Okay, nothing much, just family members being happy. You know, yesterday at around 2 a.m., that was when we tracked the convoy that was conveying the students back to their community. And we arrived at Maga community at around 1:30 to 2 a.m., where the military personnel handed over the students to the district head. And then from there, the parents also, the students were handed over to their parents. But the city of Maga, the street was filled up with people, you know, dancing, singing, and, you know, shouting, showing appreciation and praising soldiers on ground, and in particular, News Central TV for being on ground to document their story. And, you know, it was just excitement. The whole of Maga community, you know, came out yesterday en masse to welcome their children back home. But, you know, on the other hand, you know, the students, they look tired, you know, and some of them were limping. Probably with time they might be able to recover, but there is also the part of, you know, the need to remember the trauma they've been through. And now the main question is, you know, when the school reopen, and if the school is open, will the parents feel safer to return their children back to these schools? And in particular, again, while we were at the district head, the leader of the delegation, you know, said they are here to deliver 11 girls. And according to the state government, it was 24 students that were rescued. But yesterday we counted 11, but we are yet to confirm what happened to the other students.
All right, so we seem to have lost Jamil, but we still have Mansur Kurugu, an expert with us to speak more on this. Mansur, thank you for staying with us. So before we had issues with your audio, would love to know, you know, about you and your vantage point, you know, as an expert on security, because the governor of Kebbi State complained about soldiers being withdrawn before the abduction took place. So how can that gap be addressed to prevent a recurrence in the future?
Yeah, so I think you raise a very important question. The prevention mechanism in this country around all of this insecurity is what is actually very weak. And that is why we are having recurrence of all of these kidnapping across northwestern states. If we can be able to work with the communities and strengthen a community mechanism, establish a very, you know, effective early warning and early response mechanism, working with the community members, bringing them on board, let them understand their own communities, let them understand indicators of all of these work of the bandits and all of that. That would make the work very easy for the security agencies. But again, even beyond working with the community members to understand the indicators and the early signs, there has to be certain mechanism where they would be able to share those early warnings to the relevant authorities, and then there has to be an early response. However, the more concerning aspect is this. There are certain reports, verified or unverified, that were saying there were, you know, early warnings about this abduction, but yet it happened. So I think, yes, beyond, we need to work with the community members, government need to work with the community members across all the region to understand, you know, their own context, you know, to work with the security agencies to build trust with security agencies. And then, of course, there has to be an effective way where we can be able to see early response immediately those information are given. If you look at this whole scenario in Kebbi, it's not a new thing. It's a pattern that's happening in the country. And even the rescue is also a pattern. We have seen how students were rescued, you know, within 3 weeks, some within 50 days or more. So it's possible to have, you know, this kind of rescue within 1 week also, especially if the government applied these three, you know, factors. One, put a pressure, you know, block all the access to food and resources and everything to the bandits. And then, of course, have some back channel negotiation with community members that can really engage with these bandits, and then of course the calculation by the bandits themselves. They know they cannot sustain this kind of a pressure, especially because government have reacted within the first 48 to 72 hours. So they really couldn't have a way to escape where they can really take these school children far and make it very difficult for the rescue. So I think, yes, if government can be very responsive when they get an early warning, that would help. And then, of course, if government and every other person would work together with the communities to understand, all of these patterns and everything, I think that would really help in mitigating the future occurrence of this kind of abduction.
All right, Mansour, so as it stands, right, the question of whether ransom was paid, seems to be hanging somewhere with no answer. But in your expert's opinion, would you would you say that ransom was paid? Because a rescue or release, which would you call it? And what was really in the bargain, if you don't mind sharing your thoughts about that?
So I wouldn't say ransom has been paid. I think in cases like the abduction we have had in Kaduna, that is where you can easily say, I think there was this aspect of paying of ransom, because there were a very long negotiation and rest of that. But I think in this situation, it is more of the pressure, compounded on these criminals, because they really do not have enough time to mobilize, to move out, to get more resources, to take these kids far, where it will be very difficult beyond reach of security agencies. But I think there had been enormous pressure on them. Maybe some of their supplies has been blocked, and then it would be very easy if there are some back channeling, conversation and negotiation through community members for these criminals to easily, agree to whatever terms that has been brought to them. So I think it is more of that. So much pressure, and then of course having some back channeling conversation to agree on certain terms. But I'm not sure, I don't feel like it's a matter of ransom, because a ransom really takes a longer time, because there has to be a process on how to pay it, who takes it, and where do you pay it, and all of those longer terms and longer processes. But who knows? This is Nigeria.
This is Nigeria indeed. Well, questions are also being asked, has any of the bandits been arrested? Have they been arrested? What is happening? A very big question indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. So this has always been a question, should there be any reason why anybody should negotiate with bandits? Well, a lot of people have an opinion that these guys are criminals, go after them. So, but in a situation like this, when they already have our younger sisters, 24 of them, I think negotiation is the first step. Saving these kids, that should be the first step. And then, of course, government should come out and do its work and make it even impossible, for these criminals to have a place where they can hibernate and even attack. And also look at the developmental challenges that even made it possible, to have these kind of people. A lot of them are even Nigerians. And ordinarily, Nigerians shouldn't have a reason why they should attack anybody, not even other opponent or anything, anybody. But maybe there has been a systemic challenges that has been there for a very long time that had not been addressed, which I believe Nigeria now, in addition to attacking all of these bandits and making it impossible for them to do any more damages to the country, they really needed to look into all of these developmental challenges and start working about them.
Well, thank you so much, Mansour Kurugu, for your time. Thank you for speaking with us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure speaking to you.
All right, we still have Jamil. Jamil, thank you so much, Jamil, for joining and speaking on this. Jamil, if you can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. So, like I was saying, this morning we came back to Maga community, and we are right behind me is one of the houses where two students were abducted, and we tried to talk to them, but they said we have to wait for the father to come back. So today we will begin to talk to some of the students, the victims, to understand what they went through and what really happened. But like I've always said, a lot of questions that people are asking is, what happened at the back channel discussions? When was ransom paid? How was the student rescued? And, what will happen to those who were complicit that led to the abduction of these students? And but people are happy here. The mood today is that of excitement. Since yesterday, I think the people, some of them partied all night, on the street. And, Maga now, it's back, and people are happy.
Jamil, you've spoken to us about the excitement, to welcome the girls and all that. But what have security agencies said to the villagers there in Maga about security going forward?
They didn't say anything, because even the security forces were shocked when they realized we are pressed, when they saw us, because they drove, in the late early morning hours. They were like trying to smuggle them back, and News Central TV was the only station on ground that witnessed the incidents. At the point, we were stopped, and we told them that we're pressed, and we are here to tell the story. They had no option but to allow us. But when we were at the district head house, before they started, the discussions, we were asked to stay outside to finish the discussion. And as soon as they delivered the students, they returned back to Zulu, probably to the state capital. But there wasn't no assurances, no any guarantee that event or any act such will reoccur, will happen again, or measures to prevent such from happening. They didn't say anything, And even while we were coming, the school is still closed. No any military vehicle or security vehicle, parked outside the school. And like I said, most of these students now, one thing is certain: even if they want to go back to school, their parents might be skeptical, uncertain whether to take their kids back to school, or the fear of being.
All right, Jamil. So out of the 25 girls, only 11 have been returned. Do you have an idea? What are they saying about the rest of the girls?
They haven't said anything yet. That's it. We tried to speak with the district head, but he's having a meeting. So, but, from what we've gathered, there are some students who are not in Maga, who are not Maga residents, but some are saying the incidents happened in Maga. So the 24 students ought to have been brought to Maga, then parents from wherever community they are, and come and take their children back home. But 11 students were delivered. We had that in tape from the army that handed the students to the district head. He said, these are the students, 11 of them are here. So we don't know what happened to the remaining ones, whether the authorities have handed them over to their own parents at different communities. But that information, later in the day, we'll get to find out the actual number of students that were truly rescued.
Well, we hope to hear more updates about the girls soon. Thank you so much, Jamil, for the update.
Thank you.
With that, we'll take a break, and when we come back, we'll tell you that former Bayelsa State Governor Timothy Silva requests a mutually agreed date to meet EFCC over $14.8 million fraud allegations. Details after the break. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying with us. Now, the Senate is proposing the death penalty as the maximum punishment for kidnapping, banditry, and other terrorist acts. News Central's National Assembly correspondent Sagir Ibrahim reports that the resolution followed a heated session on Wednesday, during which lawmakers expressed deep concern over Nigeria's escalating insecurity triggered by deadly attacks on a church in Eruku, Kwara State, and on schools in Kebbi and Niger State. Now, News Central Sagir Ibrahim joins us from Abuja for more on this. Thank you for joining us, Sagir. So please go ahead and tell us, how does this proposal differ from past approaches in dealing with kidnapping, Sagir?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, Dashin. This is not the first time that the Senate has shown this amount of resolve with respect to the security situation in the country. If you remember some time, I think in the 8th or the 7th Senate, then lawmakers from Sadiq of Kogi West broke down in tears in the Senate during plenary because of the situation is in the country. So $1 million question, but then we are hoping that this resolve would push the security agencies and all of those involved to do what is necessary to be done to ensure that all of these issues, are tackled once and for all. Communities across Nigeria continue to bear the brunt of attacked by gunmen, assailants, bandits, terrorist activities, which has led to loss of lives of many Nigerians because of that. We saw the rise in the activities of these abductions, kidnappings, and attacks in the last few days. This is what has triggered these lawmakers this time to say we have to act, especially considering the fact that according to Senator Eyinaya Baribe, there was earlier warnings, something triggered the removal of security personnel deployed to the GGCSS to Maga, Kebbi State. This question till today has not been answered. This is the reason why lawmakers are saying there has to be an investigation to get to the bottom of this. This looks like it is a sabotage. And if this is not investigated, we risk having the situation get worse than it is at the moment. Other senators, such as the minority leader of the Senate, also raised concerns with regard to how some of these student pupils regained freedom, but yet there was no corroborative arrest, in addition to the fact that these children were rescued. So the question of whether a back channel sort of negotiation is going on, to ensure some sort of release and payment for the release of this student in terms of ransom has also to be considered, because he said if that is the case, it becomes, counterproductive to the entire effort of ensuring security is tackled, the security situation is tackled in the country. So these conversations were what we had, which led to resolutions, of course, which is now very, very well in the media space, of a death penalty being labeled on those guilty of kidnappings, and of course an amendment to the Terrorism Act to capture that, as well as the death sentence, the maximum penalty for activities of banditry and also terrorism. So this is sort of snippets of what played out during the session during Wednesday's plenary session.
All right, Tiger. Now, you did say that one major point of contention was the withdrawal of the troops from the Kebbi school just minutes before the attack. But what more have you gathered about lawmakers' concerns and what the Senate hopes to uncover in this investigation?
Well, first of all, I would say today plenary started a bit late because it was not. It couldn't form a quorum in a good time. So a quorum is when there's a minimum number of lawmakers that have to be in the Senate before plenary can start. And that number is around 45. So you see, the Senate has been unable to form a quorum at least early enough, because right now at the moment, lawmakers are currently deployed across the nation. For example, in Plateau State, where the North Central Zonal National Security Summit is going on right now, a hearing in Plateau State. I'm sure our correspondent there will be bringing details of that. Now, this buttresses the point that I was trying to make earlier, that these lawmakers are concerned. They intend to convene a national security summit in December to address these issues, to bring think tanks, to bring experts, to bring individuals who, are experts in this field, to bring in all of the security agencies under one roof to have this conversation with an intention to find a lasting solution to it. So I believe if you ask the question of what else they are doing, this sort of points us in the direction of what they intend to achieve, in terms of getting this done. So they are trying their part. Of course, they know that what they can do is make laws and also hear from the people what it is that needs to be done. But they are saying that they will not rest on their oars. They will continue to put pressure where pressure is necessary, even including visiting the president of the country to show not only solidarity, but also to tell him, give their own, advice to him to say, this is what to be done, this is what needs to be done. And of course, we also saw the Senate show that they will not tolerate any inaction from any organization or anybody involved that is supposed to be taking action. Considering the fact that just yesterday, the Senate president had dissolved the Committee of Security and Intelligence for what he described as the inability of them to keep up with the situation and even give an update with what was going on with regards to the security breaches. So you see, this culminates into some of the actions that they are at least trying to take to ensure that pressure is put in the right places to ensure that Nigerians can sleep with their two eyes closed without worry of someone attacking in the night.
All right, thank you so much, Sagar, for that update. Moving away from that, Nigeria's Senate Committee on Security has arrived in the city of Jos, the Plateau State capital, for a one-day security summit with relevant stakeholders. Chairman of the committee, Senator Abba Moro, who also doubles as the Senate Minority Leader, and his team are expected to relate with the key state actors in Plateau State with a view to reviewing security challenges as they affect the North Central Zone of Nigeria. As discussions enter day 2 for the House of Representatives Special Security Session, the former Deputy Speaker of the House, Idris Wase, has alleged an infiltration of insurgents into the Nigerian military via its recruitment process. Wase is calling for security sector accountability for all security agencies in the country. Well, our House of Representatives correspondent, Idong Joseph, has the report.
Picked up from where they left off. Lawmakers began the session with a call for accountability over the rescue of some school children recently kidnapped.
I've seen the children. Where are the kidnappers? Nigerians are asking. We have seen the children. Where are the kidnappers? We need to know.
Unlike the first day session, which concentrated on remarks from principal officers, heads of security committees and representatives from the north and southern region, this time, lawmakers took turns to make their submission.
The boogeyman insecurity has visited each and every one of us in this chamber. No one has been spared in the country.
I lost my younger brother, same mother, in Bama. So I know what it means, and I speak with pains. We are appeasing terrorists. We are placating them. They are engaged in negotiation. You can't appease your way out of terrorism, even here in this house.
Zonal caucus leaders also provided updates from their constituencies, including calls from the southeast seeking a presidential pardon for Nnamdi Kanu, the leader of the proscribed indigenous people of Biafra, recently convicted.
We are not appealing today. We are demanding today that within the ambits of law of these 60, 90 days, he has not gone to court. For Mr. President to give him a pardon and release Nnamdi Kanu to us.
While lawmakers called for a coordinated national security response, they proposed a shift from words to action and proper vetting of candidates during recruitment into security agencies.
There were moments in time when, in the process of recruitment, Boko Haram were found in the list. Other criminals, armed robbers gangs were found in the list of Nigerian army.
The time for a political approach to insecurity in Nigeria cannot secure and stop the insecurity we face today.
With the session marked by representatives recounting experiences from their constituencies, they urged the leadership of the House to interface with the executive so as to implement resolutions reached. In Abuja for News Central, Idong Joseph.
Well, earlier we did speak on the Plateau Senate Security Summit, and where the Nigerian Senate Committee on Security arrived in the city of Jos, the Plateau State capital, for a one-day security summit with relevant stakeholders. Right now we have our correspondent, Chizoba Anyonwe, who is on standby and joins us live to give us more details on this development. Hello, Chizoba, please, what details do you have on this one-day Senate Security Summit?
Good afternoon, Dashan. Well, it's a security summit just like you read in that report, and it's an ongoing event just for one day. It has held with some other zonal parts of the country. And so today is the turn for it to be held here in Plateau State, according to John State capital. So you can see behind me, we have the event ongoing right in the hall where you have the Senate Minority Leader, who also doubled as the chairman of this Senate committee to deliberate on issues bordering on security, just like you know. The team, the Senate members forming this committee are expected to listen to the stakeholders everything here. So, I mean, it's the right picture of what actually is going on in Plateau State and Benue State, Nasarawa State, Kubia, Benue, so all the other states of the North Central Zone. Of course, everyone knows what have been doing regarding security issues in the country currently now is the abduction of school children, where some of them have not yet regained their freedom. and good enough, some of them have efforts are ongoing to ensure that every one of them gets released safe and sound. So this activity going on here is just to hear from stakeholders what actually is causing this series of insecurity here and there. Of course, that is no longer news that we had this recurrent issue in the state for some time now. So, however, we will having some kind of relative peace in the state. So this is hope that at the end of this peace, there will be a continued relative peace in the state. Good enough, so I have the pleasure of having the State Commissioner for Information to give us maybe a little bit of detail of what is actually going on here today. So we have several Mrs. Joyce Ramnap. She's the former Deputy Speaker of the Plateau State House of Assembly and now the Commissioner for Information. So we'll just have a little bit of details on what is actually happening and what we're expecting. Thank you for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
So just a little bit of what we're expecting from this gathering.
Well, thank you very much. That state government is here not just as a stakeholder, but an interested party as connected. It is the efforts that have been put in place to ensure that peace and security are every part of Nigeria. We are aware that over the years, for 2001, the state that state government has and it has come with a lot of pressure for the life of so we find initiative a critical one that we should participate, and we want to also say what the people want and thoughts that should be taken to peace and security. Thank you very much for inviting us. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, Chizoba, for that update. Moving away, former Petroleum Minister of State, Chief Timothy Silva, has written to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission requesting a mutually agreed date to respond to allegations of $14.8 million fraud. The EFCC had previously declared him wanted. In the letter addressed to EFCC Chairman Ola Olukoyede, Silva cited urgent medical treatment for a life-threatening condition. He added that he is consulting doctors to determine if he can temporarily suspend care to appear. Now, he denied any wrongdoing and recalled honoring the previous EFCC invitation in December 2024. He also referenced recent military raids on his Abuja residence and the detention of aides, describing the situation as stressful and warning against the perception of a political witch hunt. Policy makers, scholars, and regional leaders are gathering in Dakar, Senegal at the Aden Conference 2025 to chart a new course for Africa's regional cooperation and economic sovereignty. Still on the 12th report, 5 children allegedly abducted in Lagos have been the subject of investigation by News Central's investigative desk. Chimka Amakalu is a man who reached out to News Central with complaints of his children being abducted by persons he said were relatives of his late wife. He alleges that he has been unable to set his eyes on his children who were living with his wife before her demise in 2018, as his wife's relatives have refused him access to his children. On News Central's special correspondent on investigative journalism, Marshal Anthony Ononye, has been investigating this claim with the support of the Nigerian police. Earlier, he had an interview with Chimka Kalu.
My concern is my sister-in-law, that's my wife's elder sister, that came to the house where we lived in Bogije, Lagos, and took my wife and children since on the 20th of August, 2018. And since then, I've not seen them till now. The first one is Hosanna, that's a female, and she's 10 years now. The second one is Hallelujah, he's 9 years now. And then the third one is Glory, female also, 8 years now. Then the twins we are giving birth to in January 2019. So they should be 7 years now. My desire for number one, my children, have been denied access to me, for as long as they have been born. Every child deserves the right to have access to his or her parents. And when one parent is no longer there, of course, the next available parent who is alive should be able to have access to those children. And when this thing has been blatantly denied the children by their supposed aunties or grannies, it shows that even the supposed aunties and grannies have no compassion for the well-being of the children. They are only trying to use the children as a vindictive tool against their suspected enemy, which is, in this case, they may seem as their own enemy. My goal, I might say, is to recover my children from their hands and be able to give my children the training that they deserve and the love that they deserve, because I wonder, it's impossible for them to be able to give them the kind of love that those children ought to receive.
Away from Nigeria, former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan and other African dignitaries and election observers are stranded in Guinea-Bissau after the country's military seized power and shut all borders. Jonathan had traveled to Bissau as part of a 36-member observer mission from African Union, ECOWAS, and West African Elders Forum to monitor the presidential election. The coup came a day after both leading candidates declared victory amid disputed results. Now, the military is calling itself the High Military Command of the Restoration of Order and has suspended the electoral process while imposing a curfew. All land, air, and sea borders have been closed, grounding flights and trapping foreign observers and diplomats inside the country. Jonathan, other African leaders, and dozens of observers remain in Bissau as the situation unfolds. In a joint statement, they condemn the coup and urge the immediate restoration of constitutional order. The United States has ruled out inviting South Africa to participate in next year's G20 events. U.S. President Donald Trump stated this on his social media platform, Truth Social. Now, President Trump's statement comes after the U.S. refused to attend this year's G20 meeting in Johannesburg. Trump also said the U.S. will stop all payments and subsidies to Pretoria, accusing the country of targeting white farmers and confiscating their land. If the threat is actualized, it will be the first time in the G20's history that a member country is excluded from the gathering of world leaders. Well, News Central's correspondent Bongani Siziba joins us live to discuss this further. Bongani, tell us, how has South Africa received the news that the U.S. will exclude South Africa from the 2026 G20, punishing Pretoria for hosting?
Yes, certainly. President Cyril Ramaphosa has noted with regrets the statement by President Donald Trump on South Africa's participation in the 2026 G20 meetings. And in his statement, President Cyril Ramaphosa said South Africa is a member of the G20 in its own name and right. And its G20 membership is very important, like all other members, and that South Africa is a sovereign country, a sovereign constitutional democratic country, and does not, I repeat, he said it does not appreciate insults from other countries about its membership and worthy in participating in global platforms. He further retaliated that South Africa respects the sovereignty of all countries and will never insult or demean any other country or its standing or its worthiness in the community of nations. So as these tensions between Pretoria and Washington continues to narrow, this is now rather going to be a massive challenge for all those international leaders that did attend the G20 last weekend in South Africa. Many of them who held President Cyril Ramaphosa for not just handling the summit, but also handling the entire year that South Africa occupied the presidency of the G20, and the final leaders' declarations, we know that what contained in that document, all sort of work is now supposed to be continued. There should be a handover that is due to take place between South Africa and the United States.
Well, thank you, Bongani, for that update. Moving away from South Africa, 2 West Virginia National Guard members were critically wounded Wednesday in a daylight shooting just blocks from the White House in Washington, D.C., in what officials described as a targeted ambush. Now, the Federal Protective Service confirmed the White House went into a temporary lockdown as a precaution while law enforcement secured the area. The Department of Homeland Security identified the suspect as 29-year-old Afghan national Rahmanullah Lakanwal, who was also wounded and taken into custody. President Donald Trump labeled the incident an act of terror, called the perpetrator an animal, and ordered 500 additional National Guard troops deployed to the capital. In business, the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN, has called on the Central Bank of Nigeria to reduce interest rates further, warning that high borrowing costs continue to weaken production and undermine competitiveness in the manufacturing sector. Now, responding to the Monetary Policy Committee decision of November 24 to 25, MAN acknowledged the retention of the monetary policy rate at 27%, but described current lending conditions as punitive for manufacturers. At its 303rd meeting, the MPC kept the MPR at 27%, adjusted the standing facilities corridor to plus 50 to or minus 450 basis points, retained the CPR at 45% for commercial banks, and maintained the 30% liquidity ratio. Now, on November 26, 2025, Guinea-Bissau woke up to the sound of gunfire and a full-blown power grab. A group of military officers stormed key government locations in Bissau, declared that they had taken total control of the country, and announced that the removal of President Umaro Sissoco Embalo. Now, this happened barely 3 days after the nation held its 2025 general election, a vote already marred by tension, suspicion, and competing claims of victory. Within hours, the military suspended the release of electoral results, shut down the country's land, air, and sea borders, and imposed a wide curfew. Now, the ruling body, calling itself the High Military Command for the Restoration of Order, claimed the coup was necessary to prevent alleged election manipulation and to stabilize the country. But for the nation that has faced multiple coups and attempted coup since independence in 1974, this was less of a surprise and more of a depressing pattern. Now, beyond the politics, the human and economic impact is already looming. With borders closed and constitutional structures frozen, the country is bracing for trade disruptions, rising uncertainty, and potential shortages. Citizens are caught in the middle of another power struggle, unsure of what comes next or how long military control will last, and regional bodies, especially ECOWAS, are under pressure to respond quickly because whatever happened in Bissau probably won't stay in Bissau. Now, the big question now is whether this military command will run a short transition or entrench itself in power. But for now, the country sits in suspense, caught between the echoes of gunfire and another uncertain dawn. And that's your postscript.